Hey everybody, it's Steve Van Tassel here for Dynasty Owner. And I am going to here talking to you about some free agent market values. We started off last week and I talked about some of the high salary running backs and quarterbacks. Now this week I'm going to talk about some guys who are going to get lower salaries. Not lower than what they were last year, but they're going to be lower than we had a $5 million worth of folks we talked about last week. So these are guys who are going to get less than $5 million a year. And the first thing we're going to do is, talk about why are we discussing this? I mean, it seems like, kind of a strange topic for discussion, but I mean, it's important. You need these guys to fill out your dynasty on a roster. You don't know what's going to happen in terms of the overall salary cap. I mean, there's a lot more expensive guys now with contracts like Josh Allen, and you're going to need some of these guys to fill in roster spots to keep your team above the 25-person player minimum and below the 30-player maximum. And pay guys like Josh Allen $43 million or Patrick Mahomes $45 million. And it's kind of the time to do these sort of things in Dynasty Owner. It's different than your regular Dynasty league in that there's not a lot going on in your regular Dynasty league at this point. Players aren't moving teams, so most guys aren't getting cut at this point. So what do you do with your regular Dynasty league team? Not much at this point, really. But what do you need to do in Dynasty Owner? You need to start thinking about salaries. You need to start thinking about the salary cap. Ours is going to be probably be a little over $145 million this year. And you're going to have to figure out, put the puzzle pieces together. How are you going to construct your roster with that restriction there that you don't have in most other dynasty leagues? So let's get to it. Let's start. As usual, I'm going to talk about market values. And these market values are pulled from our friend at SpotTrack. And so they get all the credit for pulling these market values. I did not create these. But I'm going to use them and talk about them and sort of talk about what you should do with the players if they get this market value with this market value. So these are the free agent market values, low salary running backs. And first, we're going to talk about guys who are going to get over $2.5 million per year. So I know I said under 5, and it's kind of weird. There was a bunch of guys right at a little bit above $5 million market value, and then it kind of drops a lot. So the first player who's on this list is J.D. McKissic, formerly of the Washington football team / Commanders. And last year, he was okay, running back 39. He's 28. His salary last year was $1.635 million, and his SpotTrack market value is about $5.66 million. So that's a salary increase of about $1.9 million. And what I'm suggesting you do is trade him, preferably before he signs a new contract. I just don't like him for that amount of money. I think $1.6 million was a good salary for him. Last year, he was the running back 18, and in terms of dynasty dollars per fantasy point, he was right about the same level. This past year, he was running back 39. Same thing. His value is about right in there, right about the value. So I think he's kind of hit the right amount there in terms of his value. He's not winning you a championship at $1.6 million. He's definitely not winning you a championship at $3.5 million. I just don't see him signing and being the top back anywhere. He's a third down back. He's never going to get the number of points that you're going to need to justify paying that salary. So what I would say at this point is you should trade him and do it before he signs this contract when kind of drives away some of the value from other dynasty owners. The next player we have here is Ronald Jones, always a favorite. He finished last year as running back 64, but he's only 24 years of age, and he's done with his rookie contract of $1.767 million. And SpotTrack is estimating that he's going to get a 2-year contract worth about $5.6 million. And his annual salary is going to be about $2.785 million. So that's an increase of a little over $1 million. And my recommendation to do that is trade. And it's not even a caveat. I just think you trade Ronald Jones. I mean, I think he's going to get a Mike Davis type contract, which is what it's saying here. Mike Davis got 2 years, $5.5 million. And, a lot of people were intrigued by Davis because he had done well the year before. He thought he was going to be the number one running back for his team since they didn't really do much in the offseason. And it ended up not being the case. Cordarrelle Patterson overtook him. Davis finished as the running back 36 on the year. And I foresee the same kind of thing for Jones. What I would say is that I think other dynasty owners might be interested in Jones. I'm personally not, but he's 24. He only played for one team. Somebody's got to think he's got potential. I'm not sure about that. Find somebody who covets him and trade him away. The next player we're going to talk about here is D'Ernest Johnson from the Cleveland Browns. And Johnson's interesting in that he's the only player on this list who's a restricted free agent. And there's a lot of stuff out there about restricted free agents, but basically it just means if somebody else wants to sign him, they sign him to an offer sheet, Cleveland can match it. So basically he's going to stay in Cleveland unless they don't want to pay him what the offer is. Last year he's only 25. Last year he had a $585,000 salary. Spotrac's estimating his market value at $2.66 million. So that's a salary increase of over $2 million. And my personal recommendation is keep him. Only trade if the offer is too good to pass up. And if you recall last week's video and article, I had the same kind of recommendation for Leonard Fournette. Much different reasoning, but think about D'Ernest Johnson. He finishes the running back 49. He played most of the season, but he really only played a lot in 3 games. And in all 3 of those games, he scored over 20 Dynasty Owner fantasy points in each one of those 3 games. I just think the potential is there. $2.6 million doesn't sound like a ton of money for that. And whatever team picks him up, gets him, they're going to really want him. Because if Cleveland re-signs him or matches an offer, they want to play him. They want to use him. Not going to give him $2.6 million to sit on their bench all year. And if somebody else pries him away for a big contract, they really want him too. They think he fits into their offense, and they're going to want to play him a lot. So I think I like Johnson. I'd be going out trying to get him if you can. Good luck with that. But, and if you have him, I think keep him. Just only trade him if somebody offers you a ton. Next player on this list, and the last one on this list is Marlon Mack. You may have forgotten about Marlon Mack. He's only played 7 games over the last 2 seasons. He played 6 last year, but then he fell to about 4th on the depth chart for the Colts, totally eclipsed by Jonathan Taylor, who's the running back 1. But Mack, he's only 25 years old. Last year he had a $2 million salary. He was pretty widely owned in over 90% of Dynasty Owner leagues. And they're Spotrac's anticipating his market value is a little over $2.5 million. And my attitude, if you've had him for a while, you hold him. If you've been holding him at $2 million when he did nothing last year, you should keep holding him. And I think this is regardless of where he goes. Think about last year. Nobody thought Devontae Freeman was going to be a running back 1, and he ended up being 1 for Baltimore. Admittedly, it was many ACL injuries that caused that. But Marlon Mack's 25. He could go somewhere, still play a lot. He hasn't played much in the last couple of years. His body has less wear and tear than a normal 25-year-old running back, and that's kind of what you need is potential. If you hold him and you're a contender and he does that, he's great to have on your team. If you hold him and you're not a contender, you can trade him away for something if he has a couple of good games. So I think Mack's a hold. Next, we're going to talk about players who are going to get around $2 million a year. And there's only one on this list, and that's Darrell Williams from the Chiefs. Look at that position rank. He was the 21st ranked running back on Dynasty Owner last year at the age of 26 for only $1.6 million. And Spotrac, he's the only one, in addition to being the only one around $2 million, he's the only one who's anticipated to get a 3-year deal. And his deal's anticipated to be about $2.3 million. So you're going to need about $700,000 more in salary to afford Darrell Williams. And my recommendation on him is hold until something positive happens for him on his new team, then trade him immediately. His value was the highest in the season when he took over for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He had a couple of good games. He had 25.7 points in week 17. He might have helped you win your league. Thank you. Give him a portion of that money that you won and get rid of him. I think that, I mean, what happened in the playoffs, he barely played. I mean, the Chiefs played Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon instead of him. I think that forebodes bad things. And it's going to lower his trade. It's going to lower his value, which is why I wouldn't trade him now. So I would wait till he signs with somebody new, has a good training camp, maybe a great preseason game, and then trade him at that point. And finally, we're going to talk about two players who are anticipated to have a market value of less than $2 million per year. And the first one is David Johnson, who was on the Houston Texans. He's the oldest guy we've got here. He's 30. He was the running back 62 last year, and he made $5 million. He's not going to make nearly that much. He's the only one here with a decrease, as you can see over there in the column on the right. It's a salary decrease because he's supposed to make a little under 1.5 million, which would make him $3.5 million less than last year. Highlighting the salary decrease, and the recommendation here is hold if you're a contender, trade for anything you can get if your team is rebuilding. A little different, but I think for a contending dynasty owner, you might need David Johnson. You don't know, especially if your salary's going down, his salary's going down. That'll help your team get more assets, but you should hang on to him. I mean, to use the Devontae Freeman analogy again, who knows? He could go somewhere and be the number one running back. Freeman did it last year. Admittedly, Freeman's younger, but you can't find guys at 1.5 million who could do that. I mean, it's probably only going to be 1 year. I don't know. I think if I was contending, I'd hang on to him. If I was rebuilding, obviously you just get rid of him and get what you can. And finally, we have our last player, who is Alex Collins, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, who's 27, a little younger than Johnson, about the same position rank. He was 68th ranked running back last year. He's expected to get a 1 year, $1.2 million salary, which will make his increase about $200,000 or so. And what I would say about Collins is similar to David Johnson, is that hold if you're a contender, trade if you can, if your team is rebuilding. Just don't expect to get as much as just have low expectations. You're not going to get as much as you would have got as you would get if you had David Johnson. But at the same point, you're going to need to get rid of him. Somebody else might take him, especially if they're a contender. You never know what's going to happen. So that is it. Those are all the players that we're going to talk about. We've gone through all the quarterbacks and running backs now. There's only one quarterback in the first article or video. If you read that or saw that, go back and check it out if you haven't. And the rest were running backs. These are all the guys who had market values on SpotTrack. It's not all the free agent running backs. It's just the ones who had a salary listed here, which is what you need for dynasty owner purposes. So next week we'll be after the Super Bowl. Good luck to the Rams and the Bengals. We're going to talk about wide receivers. There's a lot of them, so we're going to start with the high salary guys first, and then go to the lower salary guys after that. So come back, check that out. Also, be sure to check out the Dynasty Owner live stream on Wednesday at 4 with me and Tim. And we've got articles and videos coming from Jay Pounds tomorrow on rebuilding. Thursday, it's Nate Christian with his prospect preview. And Friday, it's Matt the Jerk, who's going to talk about free agency. And he's going by division, so he's going to list all kind of the main free agents by division and talk about them. So a little different than what I'm doing here. So make sure to read and watch that read that article, watch that video as well. Don't forget to smash the like button. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a Dynasty owner. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.